They were going to kill him at dawn, not because he was guilty, because they needed him to be. Darian Blackmore, alpha of the Northern Pack, knelt in silver chains before a town that had already written his eulogy, blood still wet on the cobblestones, 12 bodies in the morgue, and every finger in Raven Rest pointing at the monster in their midst. But monsters don't beg for trials. They don't plead for evidence. And they sure as hell don't smell like fear when the real killer is standing in the crowd, smiling. If you want to see how an innocent man survives when an entire town demands his head, stick with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's get into it. The town square of Raven Rest stank of torches, sweat, and something older, lynch mob righteousness. Darian had smelled it before, back when frontier justice meant a rope and a tree. Now they had scaffolds. Procedures. The illusion of civilization. Didn't make it any less murder. He knelt on the platform, wrists shackled in silver that burned through his skin like acid. The chains were overkill, 3 layers deep, blessed by some traveling priest who'd charged the town council a fortune. His wolf howled inside him, clawing at the barrier the metal created, but Darian kept it down. Barely. Showing teeth right now would just prove their point. Darian Blackmore. Mayor Webb's voice carried across the square, thin and reedy. The man stood at a podium 20 feet away, surrounded by armed guards who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. You stand accused of 12 counts of murder. Men, women, his voice cracked. Children. The crowd roared. Someone threw a bottle. It shattered against the platform, spraying Darian's face with cheap whiskey and glass. He didn't flinch. The evidence is clear, Webb continued, pulling out a stained cloth. Your fur, your scent. Witnesses who saw a black wolf fleeing the Mathers homestead. After the screaming stopped, someone shouted from the crowd. Darian recognized the voice, Marcus Trent, the blacksmith. Good man once, now just scared like the rest. I didn't do this. Darian's voice was rough, scraped raw from a night in a cell with no water. I was 20 miles north when the Mathers died, hunting elk in the high country. Alone. Convenient, Webb said. No witnesses. Convenient that you're not asking who benefits from framing me. Darian looked out at the crowd, searching for a single sympathetic face. Found none. The Mathers were under my pack's protection. So were the Chens, the Valdez family. Every single victim was someone we'd sworn to keep safe. Some protection, a woman spat. She clutched a shawl around her shoulders, eyes red from crying. Darian didn't know her name, but he recognized grief when he saw it. Think about it, he pressed. What kind of predator kills the people his pack is sworn to protect? What's the logic? You're not logical, Webb said, and there was something in his tone that made Darian's hackles rise. You're an animal. Animals don't need logic. They need control. And when they don't get it, he gestured at the crowd. Innocent people die. The scary thing was, Webb almost believed it. Darian could hear the conviction in his voice, see it in the way he gripped the podium. This wasn't just politics. The mayor was terrified of the wrong thing. I've lived in Raven Rest for 8 years, Darian said, forcing calm into his voice. My pack has stopped 3 range wars, tracked down 2 missing kids, and kept the mountain passes clear of actual threats. When has any of us, any wolf in this territory, turned on humans without cause? There's always a first time, someone yelled. Is there? Darian's eyes swept the crowd. Or is it easier to blame the outsider than admit you've got a real problem you can't see? We see you just fine, Marcus called out. We see what you are. Darian almost laughed. Almost. Yeah? What am I, Marcus? Same wolf who pulled your daughter out of the river last spring? Same animal who sat at your table for Sunday dinner? Marcus's face twisted. That was before... Before what? Before someone figured out I made a good scapegoat? Enough. Webb slammed his hand on the podium. We're not here to debate your character. We're here because 12 people are dead, and the evidence points to you. Planted evidence. Examined by our best tracker, Webb shot back. Daniel Corso confirmed... Corso. Darian's lip curled. Town's head of security. The same man who's been pushing for supernatural registry laws for 2 years. The same man who wanted my pack out of Raven Rest since day one. That Daniel Corso? Webb's face flushed. Corso is a decorated officer with 15 years of looking for an excuse to run us out. Darian leaned forward, chains rattling. And now he's got one. Funny how that works. The crowd shifted, murmuring, not convinced, but uncertain. That was something. Then a voice cut through the noise, cold and measured. The evidence doesn't lie. Daniel Corso himself stepped up to the platform, and Darian's wolf snarled inside him. The man was tall, built like he'd spent his youth breaking rocks, with a face that belonged on a wanted poster. Scar running from temple to jaw, eyes like flint, and a smell that Darian had been trying to place for 3 days. Something wrong underneath the sweat and leather. Something rotten. "We found your fur at 3 separate scenes," Corso said, addressing the crowd more than Darian. "We found tracks matching your wolf form. We found witnesses who saw you in the area." I'm always in the area," Darian said. "I patrol these mountains. Of course you found my tracks." "Not just tracks." Corso pulled out a leather bag, opened it. Inside was a torn piece of dark fabric, stiff with dried blood. "We found this in your cabin, hidden under the floorboards." Darian stared. It was a child's shirt, small, maybe 8 years old, with a pattern he recognized, little blue flowers on white cotton. Emma Valdez had been wearing that shirt when she died. "That's not—" Darian's voice stuck. "I've never seen that before." "Of course not," Corso said smoothly. "Because you didn't put it there. It just appeared. Magic." The crowd laughed, harsh and bitter. "You planted it." Darian's chains rattled as he lunged forward, stopped short by the guards. "You broke into my home and—" "I executed a legal search warrant," Corso interrupted, "after witnesses reported seeing you near the Valdez homestead the night of the murders." "What witnesses?" 3 separate accounts, documented and sworn. "Names," Corso smiled. "Confidential, for their protection." "Convenient." "Careful, Blackmore. You're starting to sound desperate." Darian's jaw clenched so hard his teeth creaked, because that's exactly what he was. Desperate. Boxed in. Every word out of his mouth sounded like excuses, and Corso knew it. This was a frame-up, clean and professional. Someone had spent weeks, maybe months, building this case, planting evidence, coaching witnesses, creating a narrative so tight that any defense looked like deflection. The question was why. "Mayor Webb," Corso said, turning to the podium, "I think we've heard enough. The council voted last night. All that remains is sentencing." Webb looked uncomfortable, but he nodded. "Darian Blackmore, by unanimous decision of the Ravenrest Council, you are hereby sentenced to death by—" "Wait." The voice was quiet, but it carried. Female. Young. The crowd parted and a girl stepped forward. No, not a girl. A woman, early 20s maybe, with the kind of face that hadn't decided if it wanted to be pretty or fierce, and landed somewhere in between. Dark hair pulled back in a messy braid. Clothes that looked like she'd been traveling hard. Dusty jacket, worn boots, a pack slung over one shoulder, and eyes that locked onto Darian with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Who the hell are you?" Corso demanded. The woman ignored him. She walked straight to the platform, stopped at the base of the steps, and looked up at Mayor Webb. "My name is Celine Varel," she said, "and I saw who killed the Mathers family." The square went silent. Webb blinked. "You... what?" "I was there." Celine's voice was steady, but Darian could hear the tremor underneath. Fear, but not of the crowd, of something else. 3 nights ago, I was camped in the woods about a mile from their homestead. I heard the screaming. "Why didn't you come forward?" Webb asked. "Because I was afraid of what I saw." Celine's hands clenched at her sides. "Because I didn't think anyone would believe me." "Try us," Corso said, voice flat. Celine looked at him, and something flickered across her face. Recognition? No, realization. "It wasn't a wolf," she said quietly. "It was something wearing a wolf's shape." The crowd erupted. Shouting, jeering, someone threw another bottle. This one missed. "Order!" Webb slammed his hand down. "Explain yourself, Miss Virel." Celine took a breath. "I know what a wolf looks like. I grew up in the Northern Territories. My father was a ranger. I've seen dozens of packs, hunted alongside them during harsh winters. I know how they move, how they hunt. She pointed at Darian. That's a wolf. What I saw at the Mathers homestead wasn't. It had 4 legs, Corso said, voice dripping with condescension. Fur, teeth. What else could it be? It had the shape of a wolf, Celine corrected. But it moved wrong, jerky, like something was piloting it instead of being it. And when it killed, she stopped, swallowed hard. Wolves kill to eat or to protect. They're efficient. This thing, it played with them. It made them suffer. Sounds like a rogue wolf to me, someone in the crowd muttered. Rogues go mad, Celine shot back. They don't plan. They don't calculate. This thing circled the house 3 times before it went in. It waited until the father came outside to investigate the noise, took him down fast, then went after the mother and kids, one by one, methodical. Darian's blood ran cold. That was exactly how the Mathers had died. He'd seen the report. Father in the yard, mother in the kitchen, children upstairs in their beds. Precise. Calculated. Not random at all. And you saw all this from a mile away? Corso's voice was sharp. Through the trees? In the dark? I have good eyes. Celine met his gaze, and I got closer after it left. Stupid thing to do. I needed to know what it was. And? Celine hesitated, just for a second, but Darian caught it. Whatever she'd seen had shaken her badly. It was a shifter, she said finally, but not a natural one. It smelled wrong, like copper and burnt hair. And when it changed, she stopped again, and this time her voice shook. It didn't change the way wolves do. It was violent, like bones breaking and reforming, like it hurt. You're saying it was human, Webb said slowly. I'm saying it wore both shapes, and neither one fit right. Corso laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. This is ridiculous. The girl's clearly traumatized, making up stories. I know what I saw. Celine's voice hardened, and I know it wasn't him. She pointed at Darian. I've been tracking the real killer for 3 days. I found its camp this morning, about 5 miles northeast near the old mining ruins. Convenient, Corso said. And I assume you have proof? Celine reached into her pack, pulled out a bundle wrapped in cloth. She tossed it at Corso's feet. He picked it up, unwrapped it. His face went blank. Inside was a human hand, partially decomposed, skin sloughing off. But the fingernails were intact, long, painted red. And on one finger was a ring that Darian recognized. Catherine Mathers had worn that ring. Never took it off. The crowd noise changed. Anger turned to unease. Where did you get this? Webb's voice was thin. I told you. It's camp. Celine's eyes never left Corso. Along with pieces of 4 other victims. Trophies. That doesn't prove, Corso started. It proves someone's collecting body parts from the crime scenes, Darian interrupted. Parts that weren't mentioned in any public report. How would she know about the ring unless she'd actually seen it? Webb looked between them, face pale. Daniel? It's a trick, Corso said, but his voice had changed, lost some of its certainty. She could have stolen these herself. Could be working with Blackmore. I got into Raven Rest 4 hours ago, Celine said. I've never met him before today. I came here because I wanted to warn you. You're about to execute an innocent man while the real killer walks free. Why should we believe you? Someone shouted from the crowd. Because I have no reason to lie. Celine spread her hands. I don't know him. Don't owe him anything. I'm just passing through. But I can't stand by and watch this happen when I know the truth. Darian stared at her. There was something else there, something she wasn't saying, but her voice rang with conviction and the crowd felt it. They were listening now. Mayor Webb, Darian said carefully, I'm asking for one thing. Delay the execution. 24 hours. Let me and Miss Viral prove there's another predator out there. Absolutely not, Corso snapped. This is an obvious delaying tactic. Then what are you afraid of? Celine challenged. If you're so sure he's guilty, 24 hours won't change anything. But if you're wrong, if there's even a chance you're wrong, don't you want to know before you kill a man? Webb rubbed his face. He looked old suddenly, worn down by decisions he'd never wanted to make. The council voted, he said quietly. The council can vote again. Darian leaned forward. Sir, I've lived in this town for 8 years. I've bled for it. I've protected families who won't even look at me now. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm asking for justice. Real justice. Not just the easy answer. The crowd murmured, still hostile but fracturing, doubt creeping in around the edges. Webb looked at Corso. Daniel, your professional opinion? Corso's jaw worked. For a moment, Darien thought he'd push for the execution anyway. But too many eyes were watching now, and even a rigged trial had to look fair. Fine, he said finally. 24 hours, but Blackmore stays in chains, and this girl, he pointed at Celine, she doesn't leave my sight. Agreed, Celine said immediately. Webb nodded slowly. 24 hours. If you can't produce solid evidence of another killer, the sentence stands. He looked at Darien. Understood. Understood. Take him back to the holding cells. Webb turned away. Council will reconvene tomorrow at dawn. The guards grabbed Darien's chains, hauled him to his feet. Silver burned through his wrists, making his vision blur. But he caught Celine's eye as they dragged him past. She nodded. Once. A promise. Then the crowd swallowed her, and Darien was shoved down the steps into the darkness of the jail. Pause. The holding cell was 8 by 10, stone walls that sweated moisture, a cot that smelled like mildew and despair. They dumped Darien inside, chained him to a ring in the wall, and left without a word. He sat on the cot and tried to think. 24 hours. It wasn't enough time to investigate a sneeze, let alone a serial killing, but it was what he had. And he had Celine Varel, whoever the hell she was. Darien closed his eyes, reaching out with senses that went beyond the human. The cell door was solid oak reinforced with iron. 2 guards outside talking in low voices. Beyond that, the jail office, where Corso was probably grilling Celine right now. He focused harder, pushing his awareness through the walls. The wolf inside him stirred, lending its strength despite the silver suppression. And there, voices. Muffled but distinct. Convenient timing. That was Corso. You just happened to be in the area, just happened to see everything. I told you, Celine's voice, tired but firm. I've been tracking this thing for 2 weeks. It hit a homestead near Copper Ridge, another one outside Silver Falls. Same pattern every time. And you didn't think to report it? To who? Local sheriffs who think shifters are fairy tales? I'm a drifter, Corso. No credentials, no badge. I show up claiming there's a monster wearing human skin, they lock me up or laugh me out of town. So you waited until someone else got blamed. I waited until I had proof. A pause. Unlike you. Careful, girl. Or what? You'll throw me in a cell next to him? Go ahead. At least I'll know he's still alive come morning. Silence. Then Corso's voice, lower and colder. What's your real game here? No game. Just trying to stop an innocent man from dying. Nobody's innocent. He is. You don't know that. I know what I saw. You saw a shape in the dark. Could have been anything. It was a shifter, and not him. Another pause. Longer this time. When Corso spoke again, his voice had changed, softer, almost curious. Let's say you're right, he said. Let's say there is another killer. What makes you think we can find it in 24 hours? Because I know where it's going next. Darien's eyes snapped open. Explain, Corso demanded. The pattern. Celine's voice was steady, but Darien could hear the exhaustion underneath. Every victim was part of a vulnerable population, isolated homesteads, families with kids, people who depended on pack protection. So the killer's not random. It's targeting the people Blackmore's pack swore to defend. It's trying to break the trust between humans and shifters. That's a hell of an assumption. It's the only thing that makes sense. Think about it. Why frame Blackmore specifically? Why not any other wolf? He's the alpha. Exactly. Take out the leader, discredit the whole pack, create fear, chaos, division. Then who benefits? Corso didn't answer. You tell me, Celine pressed. Who in this town has been pushing for supernatural segregation? Who wants the packs gone? That's irrelevant. Is it? The temperature in the conversation dropped about 20 degrees. You're playing a dangerous game, Miss Viral. I'm trying to save lives, yours included. Mine? You think this thing stops with Blackmore? You think it's satisfied? Celine's voice hardened. It's building to something. And when it's done with the outer families, it'll come for the town itself. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that it's escalating. First attack, 1 victim. Second, 2. Third, a whole family. It's getting bolder, hungrier, and it won't stop until someone stops it. Then we catch it, Corso said, after we deal with Blackmore. By then it'll be too late. That's speculation. It's pattern recognition, and if you had any sense, you'd see it too. Footsteps, a chair scraping. You've got 12 hours to prove your theory, Corso said. After that, Blackmore hangs, with or without your mystery monster. The door slammed. Darian let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. 12 hours. Corso had just cut their time in half. He leaned back against the wall, chains clinking. The silver burned, but it was background pain now. He'd learned to live with it. What he couldn't live with was dying for crimes he didn't commit. Footsteps approached his cell, lighter than the guards. He looked up. Celine stood on the other side of the bars, arms crossed. In the lamplight, she looked younger than he'd thought, mid-20s at most, but her eyes were old. You shouldn't have done that, Darian said. Which part? Any of it. Corso's going to make your life hell now. He was already planning to. Celine pulled out a key ring, started trying locks. I just gave him a reason. Where'd you get those? Lifted them off the deputy while Corso was yelling at me. He's got to tell. Leans forward when he's angry, leaves his right pocket exposed. The third key clicked. The cell door swung open. Darian stared. You're breaking me out. Time's not on our side. We've got 12 hours to find this thing before they hang you anyway. They'll hunt us down. Probably. Celine knelt in front of him, examining the silver chains. Can you shift with these on? No. Then we need bolt cutters. There's a toolbox in the jail office. Far wall. Stay here. She disappeared, silent as smoke. Darian sat in the open cell, barely believing this was happening. The smart play was to stay put, play by the rules, trust the system. But the system had already decided to kill him. Celine returned with the bolt cutters and a coil of rope. This is going to hurt. I'm used to it. She braced the cutters against the chain squeezed. The silver snapped with a sound like breaking glass. Darian gasped as the metal fell away, his skin blistering where it had touched. Sorry, Celine muttered, moving to the next chain. Why are you doing this? Darian asked. Really? You don't know me. This isn't your fight. Celine paused, just for a second. My father was a ranger. He worked with packs across 3 territories. One winter, his whole team got trapped in a blizzard, would have frozen to death if a wolf pack hadn't sheltered them. Shared their den, their food, kept them alive for 2 weeks until the storm passed. She cut through another chain. He taught me that monsters aren't defined by species. They're defined by choices. And I've seen enough of this thing's work to know it's the real monster here. The last chain fell away. Darian's wrists were raw, bleeding, but the silver fog in his head started to clear immediately. Can you walk? Celine asked. He stood, swayed, steadied. Yeah. Good, because we need to move fast. She handed him the rope. There's a guard rotation in 5 minutes. We've got a window. Where are we going? The mining ruins. That's where I found the trophies. Celine moved to the cell door, checked the corridor. If the pattern holds, the killer goes back to its camp between hunts. We catch it there, we end this. And if it's not there, then we're dead anyway. Might as well die trying. Darian couldn't argue with that logic. They slipped out of the cell, moving through the jail like shadows. The building was old, designed more for drunks sleeping it off than actual security. 2 guards at the front, 1 at the back. They went out through the rear window, dropping into an alley that stank of garbage and stale beer. The moon was up, 3/4 full. Enough light to see by, but not enough to give them away. This way. Celine led him through a maze of back streets, avoiding the main roads where people still gathered in angry knots, rehashing the trial. Darian's ears picked up fragments of conversation. Should have hanged him on the spot. Can't trust those animals. Town's not safe anymore. They weren't wrong about that last part. At the edge of town, Celine stopped behind a stable. She pulled a pack from behind a water trough, clearly stashed there earlier, and started gearing up. Knives, a hunting rifle, silver bullets. "You came prepared," Darian observed. "I've been hunting this thing for 2 weeks. I learned from my mistakes." She handed him a knife. "Can you use this?" "I prefer claws." "You're still recovering from the silver. Keep the knife." He took it. The weight felt wrong in his hand, too balanced, too civilized. But she was right about the silver. His wolf was stirring, but it'd be hours before he could shift properly. "Tell me about the families," Celine said, loading the rifle. "The ones who died. What connected them?" Darian thought back. They were all under pack protection. We'd made formal agreements. We patrol their lands. They provide goods and services. Trade arrangement. Who initiated it? I did, about 3 years ago, after a bad winter. A lot of the outer homesteads were struggling. We had food. They had skills. Made sense to cooperate. How'd the town react? Mixed. Some people thought it was smart. Others? He shrugged. They thought I was building a power base, getting ready to take over. Were you? No, I was trying to survive. We all were. Celine nodded. Who opposed it loudest? Corso. He argued that it gave shifters too much influence, said we'd use it to undermine human authority. And now you're framed for killing the very people you were protecting. Yeah. Neat. Celine shouldered the pack, almost like someone wanted to prove his point. Darian had been thinking the same thing, but hearing it out loud made it worse. Because if Corso was involved, if he'd orchestrated this whole thing, then they were walking into a trap. But what choice did they have? The ruins are 5 miles northeast, Celine said. We push hard. We can make it in under 2 hours. Lead the way. They ran. The mountains around Raven Rest were old, worn down by time and weather into rolling hills covered in pine and scrub oak. In daylight, they were beautiful. At night, they were just shapes and shadows, full of sounds that probably meant nothing but could mean everything. Darian's senses were sharper than Celine's, but she moved through the darkness like she'd been born to it. No wasted motion, no hesitation. She'd done this before. You said you've been tracking it for 2 weeks, Darian said, keeping pace beside her. Where'd you pick up the trail? Copper Ridge, small settlement about 60 miles west. I was passing through when I heard about a family getting slaughtered. Sounded wrong, so I investigated. What made it sound wrong? The locals blamed a bear, but bears don't arrange bodies, they don't leave messages. Darian's step faltered. Messages? Carved into the walls, symbols I didn't recognize, old ones. Celine vaulted over a fallen log. I tried to warn them it wasn't a bear, but they didn't listen, so I started following the trail myself. And it led here. Eventually. 2 more attacks along the way, same pattern. Isolated families, brutal kills, evidence pointing at local shifters. She glanced at him. You're not the first one framed for this. That sent ice through Darian's veins. The others, one dead, killed by a mob before I could intervene. The other ran. Last I heard, he was in the deep territories, hiding. And you didn't think to warn us? I tried. Sent messages to the Raven Rest pack house 2 weeks ago. No response. Darian's jaw clenched. His beta, Marcus, the real Marcus, not the blacksmith, had mentioned some letters arriving. Weird religious stuff, he'd said. Probably a scam. They'd thrown them out. I'm sorry, he said. Save it. We've got bigger problems. They ran in silence for another mile. The forest grew denser, older. Trees that had been standing when the town was founded, maybe before. The air changed, cooler, damper, smelling of rot and old copper. Celine slowed, raised a hand. We're close. Darian's wolf stirred, hackles rising. Something was wrong here. The forest was too quiet. No nightbirds, no insects, just silence and the smell of decay. There, Celine pointed. Through the trees, Darian could see the ruins. Old mining operation from before the territory was settled properly. Just collapsed tunnels and rusted equipment now, slowly being reclaimed by the forest. And in the center, a campfire still smoldering. They approached carefully, weapons drawn. The camp was crude, just a clearing with a fire pit and some scattered supplies. No tent, no bedroll. Like whoever stayed here didn't need sleep, or wasn't human enough to care about comfort. Look. Celine crouched beside the fire, pointing at marks in the dirt. Tracks. Paw prints the size of dinner plates, pressed deep into the mud. But the spacing was wrong, too far apart, like whatever made them had been running on its hind legs. That's not a wolf, Darian said quietly. No. Celine stood, scanning the trees. It's not. A sound reached them, distant but distinct, screaming. They looked at each other. That's coming from town, Darian said. It's already there. Celine grabbed her pack. We need to move, now. They ran back the way they came, fear lending them speed. Behind them, the campfire guttered out, plunging the ruins into darkness. And in that darkness, something laughed. The screaming grew louder as they broke through the tree line. Raven Rest sprawled below them, usually dark this late except for scattered porch lights and the occasional tavern. Now half the town was lit up like a beacon, orange flames licking at the night sky. The Hendersons' place, Darian said, recognizing the location. Eastern Edge, they've got 3 kids. Celine was already running. They hit the outskirts at a dead sprint, boots hammering the dirt road. People were streaming out of houses, some heading toward the fire, others fleeing from it. Chaos in both directions. Someone crashed into Darian, old Mrs. Chen, her nightgown torn, face streaked with soot. It came from nowhere, she sobbed. Just crashed through the window and... Which way? Darian gripped her shoulders, forcing her to focus. Which way did it go? She pointed toward the center of town. The square. It went toward the square. Celine swore under her breath. That's where everyone will gather. They left Mrs. Chen with a neighbor and pushed deeper into the chaos. The streets were packed now, people running, shouting, some trying to organize a bucket brigade for the fire, others just panicking. Darian caught fragments of voices. Saw it with my own eyes, bigger than any wolf. Told you he was guilty, told you. Where's Corso? Someone find Corso. The town square was pandemonium. At least 200 people crammed into a space meant for half that, all yelling over each other, pointing in different directions. The execution platform still stood in the center, a grim reminder of what had almost happened at dawn. Mayor Webb was on this platform trying to restore order, his voice barely audible over the noise. Need to stay calm, please. We have people working. Calm? A man Darian didn't recognize pushed to the front. My neighbor's house is burning, and you want calm. The fire brigade is 5 people with buckets. We need real help. Then get the packs involved, someone else shouted. They're supposed to protect us. The packs? Marcus the blacksmith's voice cut through, bitter and sharp. You want to trust the same animals that murdered 12 people? Blackmore's in jail, Webb said. He couldn't have... Is he? Marcus pointed toward the jail. Anyone checked? A ripple of uncertainty went through the crowd. No one had checked. Corso appeared from the edge of the square, 3 deputies behind him. His face was grim, but there was something else underneath, satisfaction, maybe, like he'd been waiting for this. The jail's been breached, he announced. Blackmore's gone. The crowd erupted, angry, terrified, looking for someone to blame. I knew it, Marcus shouted. He set the fire as a distraction. He didn't set anything. Celine's voice rang out, clear and cold. The crowd turned. When they saw her standing next to Darian, the noise changed. Confusion. Fury. Someone threw a rock. It missed by inches. That's the girl from earlier, someone said. The one who defended him. She helped him escape, Corso said. And there it was again, that undercurrent of satisfaction. He was enjoying this. Miss Varel broke Blackmore out of custody approximately 3 hours ago. Because you were going to kill an innocent man, Celine shot back, while the real threat walked free. The real threat is standing right next to you. Is it? Celine gestured at the burning house. Because last I checked, your monster was in chains. So who set that fire? Corso's jaw tightened. Accomplices. His pack is 10 miles north in their territory, Darian interrupted. They don't come into town without permission. You know that. Maybe they're tired of asking permission. Or maybe you're looking in the wrong direction. Darian stepped forward, and the crowd instinctively backed up. He was still dangerous in their eyes, still the monster they wanted to believe in. The Henderson house, that's the fourth family under pack protection. Fourth family attacked in 2 weeks. See the pattern? I see you deflecting, Corso said. I see you refusing to investigate. Darian's voice rose. How many more people have to die before you admit there's something else out there? There's nothing else. Corso slammed his hand on the platform railing. We have a rogue alpha and his sympathizer running loose, and until we catch them, a scream cut him off, high and terrified, coming from the south end of the square. The crowd turned as one. A woman stumbled into the torchlight, clothes torn, bleeding from a gash across her shoulder. Deputy Harris, one of Corso's people. It's in the church, she gasped. It killed Father Michaels. She collapsed. 2 people rushed to help her, but Darian was already moving. The church was 100 yards away, stone building with a bell tower that dominated the town skyline. Old, solid, supposed to be safe. Nothing was safe anymore. Wait! Corso shouted, but Darian ignored him. Selina was right behind, rifle ready. They hit the church doors together. Inside was darkness and the smell of copper. Darian's eyes adjusted fast, wolf senses pushing through the silver suppression. The pews were intact, candles still burning at the altar, but the floor was wet with something dark. Blood, Celine whispered. Fresh. A sound from the shadows. Breathing, harsh and wet, not human. Darian moved toward the altar, every instinct screaming at him to shift, to fight on 4 legs instead of 2. But the silver was still in his system, burning through his veins like poison. Shifting now would tear him apart. Show yourself, he called out. The breathing stopped. Then laughter, low, bubbling, wrong. Oh, Darian. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You always were too noble for your own good. A shape detached from the darkness behind the altar. Man-sized, walking upright, but the proportions were all wrong. Arms too long, joints bending in places they shouldn't. And the face? It wore Father Michael's face like a mask, not metaphorically. The skin hung loose, eyes staring from beneath it, and underneath was something else. Something with too many teeth. Celine raised the rifle. What are you? What am I? The thing tilted its head and Father Michael's face slipped, revealing scales and fur and something that might have been bone. I'm what happens when you try to be something you're not, when you deny your nature long enough that it eats you from the inside. It stepped into the candlelight and Darian's stomach turned. The body was a patchwork, human skin stitched to wolf fur, bones jutting out at angles that defied anatomy, like someone had tried to build a shifter from scratch and gotten the blueprints wrong. You're a failed transformation, Celine said quietly. Someone tried to become a shifter artificially. The thing laughed again. Failed? Look at me. I'm perfect. I'm what Blackmore and his kind refused to be. Pure predator. No conscience, no weakness, no pathetic human morality holding me back. You're dying, Darian said, seeing it now. The skin was rotting where it met the fur. The bones were brittle, cracking under the thing's own weight. The transformation is killing you. Then I'll die doing what I was made for. It lunged. Celine fired. The silver bullet caught it in the shoulder, spun it around, but didn't drop it. The thing howled, not in pain, in rage, and came at them sideways, moving like a spider. Darian grabbed a pew, ripped it free with strength he shouldn't have had, and swung. Wood connected with flesh and bone, sending the creature sprawling. But it rolled, came up fast, and Darian saw its face properly for the first time. Corso's eyes stared out from beneath the stolen skin. Not Corso. Something wearing his face. You, Celine breathed. Me, the thing agreed. It straightened, bones popping back into place with sounds like gunshots. Did you really think he'd let you expose him? That he'd let the town see what he's become? Corso did this to you, Darian said. He created you. Created? The thing laughed. He is me. We're the same, just different stages. Oh no. The experiment, Celine said. You were trying to become a shifter, to gain the power without being born to it. To take what you people guard so jealously. The Corso thing circled them, blood dripping from its wounds. He spent years studying shifters, hunting them, cutting them apart to find the source. And when he finally found it, he tried to force the change, Darian finished, but it didn't work right. It worked perfectly. The thing's voice was defensive now, cracking. He became strong, powerful, everything he was meant to be. He became a monster, Celine said. We're all monsters. The thing's face contorted, Corso's features stretching into something inhuman. The only difference is who admits it. Blackmore pretends to be civilized, plays house with the humans, but I've seen what he is inside. What all of you are. Killers, predators, just better at hiding it. That's why you framed me, Darian said. To prove your point. To show the town that shifters can't be trusted. To show them the truth. The thing's breathing was getting worse, more labored. That integration is a lie. That your kind and theirs can never coexist. There will always be violence, always blood. Better to embrace it than pretend otherwise. So you killed innocent people. I killed the weak, the ones who relied on predators for protection, natural selection. Celine fired again. This time the bullet took the thing in the chest, and it screamed. Not Corso's voice anymore, something older, more primal. It staggered back, hitting the altar, knocking candles to the floor. You can't kill me, it gasped. Even if you destroy this body, he's still out there, still in control. And when your 24 hours run out when they hang you at dawn, he'll have won. Where is he? Darian demanded. Where's the real Corso? The thing smiled with too many teeth. Closer than you think. Then it lunged again, not at them, at the candles. It grabbed a fistful, crushed them, and hurled the flames at the wooden pews. Fire caught instantly, spreading fast. The church was old, dry timber that had been waiting decades for a spark. Move! Celine grabbed Darian's arm, dragging him toward the door. Behind them, the Corso thing laughed and burned. They burst out into the square just as the church bell began to toll. Not from anyone ringing it, from the heat warping the metal. The crowd saw them emerge from the burning building, saw Darian covered in blood, and drew their own conclusions. He did it! Someone screamed. He's burning the church. No. Celine started, but a rock hit her in the temple. She went down hard. Darian caught her, but the crowd was surging forward now, angry and terrified and looking for someone to hurt. He could fight them, even weakened. He could tear through 24 humans before they brought him down. But that would just prove Corso right. Stop! Mayor Webb's voice, thin and desperate. Everyone stop! They didn't listen. The mob had its target. Then a gunshot cracked the air. Everyone froze. Corso stood at the edge of the platform, pistol pointed at the sky, face grim. I said enough. He lowered the gun, eyes scanning the crowd. We do this by law, not by lynch mob. The law's had its chance, Marcus shouted. Look what it got us. What it got us is time to see the truth. Corso's voice was steady, commanding. Everything the thing in the church hadn't been. And the truth is, we've been looking at the wrong enemy. The crowd murmured, confused. Corso stepped down from the platform, walked straight to Darian. For a moment they locked eyes, and Darian saw something flicker there. Fear. Determination. Guilt. You were right, Corso said quietly. There's something else out there. I found the evidence in my office after you escaped. Reports I should have seen weeks ago. Witness statements that were buried. Someone's been manipulating the investigation from the inside. Who? Webb asked. I don't know yet. Corso looked at the burning church. But whoever it is, they're trying to destroy this town. Turn us against each other. And they're using Blackmore as the catalyst. Why should we believe you? Marcus demanded. You're the one who wanted him dead. Because I was wrong. The words came hard, but Corso forced them out. I let my prejudice blind me to the evidence, and because of that, good people died. He turned to the crowd. The Henderson family survived tonight. Deputy Harris got them out before the fire spread, but they saw what attacked them, and it wasn't a wolf. It was something else, something that walked on two legs and spoke with a human voice. The crowd shifted, uncertain. I'm calling for an emergency council session, Corso continued. We investigate this properly. No executions, no mob justice. We find the real killer, and we end this. And if it's him? Someone pointed at Darian. Then we'll have proof. Corso met Darian's eyes. Real proof. Not just fear and assumptions. It was a gamble, a massive, dangerous gamble, but it was also the first rational thing anyone in authority had said all night. Webb nodded slowly. Council will convene at first light. Until then, he looked at Darian. You're still under arrest, but I'm assigning you to house custody instead of the jail. You'll stay in the town hall under guard. I'm staying with him, Celine said, getting to her feet. Blood ran down her face from the rock wound, but her voice was steady. That's not, Corso started. Non-negotiable. She stared him down. You want him contained? Fine, but I'm not letting him out of my sight. Corso considered, then nodded. Agreed, but you're both confined to the building. No more running off. We won't need to, Celine said, because the killer's going to come to us. What makes you think that? Because we found its camp, because we know what it is, and because she looked at the burning church. Whatever that thing was in there, it was dying, falling apart, which means the main body needs to feed, needs to replenish. How do you know this? Webb asked. I've been tracking failed transformations for 3 years, Celine said. Ever since one killed my father. They all follow the same pattern. The change takes more energy than the body can sustain. So they hunt, they consume, and eventually they burn out. How long do we have? Hours? Maybe less. Celine wiped blood from her eyes. It'll strike again before dawn, and when it does, we'll be ready. Corso looked at Darian. You believe her? Darian thought about the thing in the church, the way it moved, the way it spoke, the desperation underneath the bravado. Yeah, he said. I do. Then we set a trap. Corso turned to his deputies. I want every family on the protection list moved to the town hall. We concentrate our forces, make ourselves an obvious target. That's insane, Marcus protested. You're inviting it to attack. We're controlling the battlefield, Corso interrupted. Right now it's picking us off one by one, keeping us terrified and scattered. We bring everyone together, we take away its advantage. And if it doesn't take the bait, then at least we've protected the most vulnerable. Corso's jaw set. I'm done playing defense. We end this tonight. The crowd began to disperse, some heading to gather the families, others to fight the fires. Darian and Celine were escorted to the town hall, a sturdy brick building at the north end of the square, built to withstand Indian raids back when the town was founded. Inside, families were already gathering, scared, exhausted, clutching whatever belongings they'd managed to grab. Kids crying, parents trying to keep it together. The Henderson children huddled in a corner, staring at nothing. Darian found a spot against the wall and sank down. Every muscle ached. The silver burns on his wrists were infected, red and swollen. His wolf paced inside him, frustrated and hurting. Celine sat next to him, pressing a cloth to the cut on her head. You okay? Define okay. Fair point. She leaned back, eyes scanning the room. This is a bad idea, you know, concentrating everyone in one place. You're the one who suggested it. I suggested we be ready, not that we paint a target on our backs. She lowered her voice. If that thing gets in here with all these people, it won't. You don't know that. No. But I know Corso's right about one thing. We can't keep running scared. We make a stand or we die anyway. Celine was quiet for a moment. Then, the thing in the church. It had Corso's eyes. I saw. You think it was telling the truth? That Corso's the one behind this? Darian had been wrestling with that question since they'd escaped the burning building. The thing's words, its mannerisms, they'd felt like Corso, but also not. I think Corso tried to become a shifter, he said slowly. I think he experimented on himself, and it went wrong. And I think whatever came out of that experiment, it's not entirely him anymore. A split personality? More like the wolf side and the human side separated instead of merging. One body became two. The Corso we've been dealing with is the human remnant. What we fought in the church was the beast. That's not how transformations work. It is if you force it. If you don't have the genetic foundation, the spiritual connection, you're trying to jam two incompatible things together. Something's got to break. Celine processed that. So the real Corso, the human one, he might not even know what his other half is doing. Or he knows and he's trying to stop it. That's why he suddenly changed his tune. Why he's helping us now. Or it's a trap. Lure us into trusting him, then finish the job. Maybe. Darian closed his eyes. Doesn't change what we have to do. Which is? Survive until dawn. Stop whatever's coming. Prove I'm not the monster they think I am. And if we can't, then at least we go down fighting. Celine smiled, tired and grim. You know, for someone about to die, you're surprisingly calm. I've been about to die for 3 days. You get used to it. She laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, I guess you do. The door opened. Corso entered with 3 deputies, arms full of weapons. He distributed them to the men in the room, shotguns, rifles, anything that could hurt the thing if it came. When he reached Darian, he hesitated. I owe you an apology, Corso said. You owe me more than that. I know. Corso crouched down, met his eyes. I was wrong. About you. About shifters in general. I let fear turn into hate, and people died because of it. Why the change of heart? Corso was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled back his sleeve, showing his forearm. Deep scratches ran from wrist to elbow, barely scabbed over. I've been having blackouts, he said quietly, waking up in places I don't remember going, with blood under my nails. And this morning I found this. He pulled out a piece of cloth from his pocket, another child's shirt, stiff with dried blood. Emma Valdez's shirt, the one he'd found in Darian's cabin. It was in my desk drawer, Corso continued. I have no memory of putting it there, no memory of... He stopped, jaw clenched. I think I'm losing time, losing myself. You tried to become a shifter, Darian said. Not a question. Corso's eyes widened. How did you... The thing in the church. It had your face. Corso's face went white. That's not possible. I haven't shifted in weeks. I've been using suppressants, silver chains at night. It's not you, Celine interrupted. It's what you created. When you forced the transformation, you split. The wolf and the man became separate entities. That's... Corso stopped, because it made horrible sense. The blackouts. They're when it takes over. Probably. When the human consciousness fades, the beast steps in. But Corso sat down hard, looking lost. I did this. All those deaths? You didn't kill anyone, Darian said. The thing using your body did. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. Because you're here trying to fix it. A real monster wouldn't care. Corso looked at him, something like gratitude in his eyes. Then he stood. If what you're saying is true, if the beast is separate, how do we stop it? We kill it, Celine said simply, before it kills us. And how do we do that without killing me? I don't know yet. Celine met his gaze. But we'll figure it out, or we'll die trying. Corso nodded slowly. Then I guess we're in this together. Guess so. The 3 of them sat in uneasy silence, watching the families settle in around them. Kids falling asleep on mothers' laps, men checking and rechecking weapons. Everyone trying not to think about what was coming. Darian's wolf stirred, suddenly alert. His head snapped up. What? Celine asked. Smell. He stood, moving to the window. Outside, the square was dark except for a few torches. The church still burned, but the fire brigade had contained it. And underneath the smoke, something else. Copper and rot and wrongness. It's here, he said. As if in answer, something howled. Not a wolf's howl, something broken and furious and inhuman. The windows shattered inward, glass exploding across the room. People screamed, scrambling back, and through the broken frames poured shapes, dozens of them, moving on all fours but wrong, twisted, like the thing in the church but smaller, fragments of the main body. Defensive positions, Corso shouted, raising his rifle. Gunfire erupted. The room descended into chaos, people fighting, running, dying. The creatures were fast, vicious, attacking with mindless fury. Darian grabbed one by the throat as it lunged at a child, slammed it into the wall. Bone crunched. The thing squirmed, bit his hand, and he roared, more wolf than human, and tore its head clean off. Black blood sprayed. The body kept moving for a few seconds, then collapsed. Beside him, Celine was firing methodically, each silver bullet dropping a creature. But there were too many. They kept coming, pouring through the windows, the doors, rising from the shadows themselves. "Fall back," Corso ordered. "Second floor." They retreated up the stairs, fighting every step. Darian's vision was going red around the edges, the wolf clawing its way to the surface despite the silver. He was losing control. Good. Control wasn't going to save them now. They reached the second floor and barricaded the stairwell with furniture. Below, the creatures howled and scratched, but the barrier held. For now. "We can't stay here," Celine said, reloading. "They'll overwhelm us." "We don't have a choice," Corso said. "We leave this room. We're dead." "We stay. We're dead anyway." She looked at Darian. "How long until you can shift?" "I don't know. Hours, maybe." "We don't have hours." She grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. "I need you to shift now, right now. Full wolf. It's the only way we survive. The silver will hurt like hell and maybe kill you, but maybe not. And maybe is better than definitely dead." She was right. Darian knew she was right. He closed his eyes, reaching for the wolf inside. It snarled, eager, furious at being caged. He let it loose. Pain exploded through every nerve. His bones broke and reformed, muscles tearing, skin splitting. The silver in his system fought the change, burning like acid, and he screamed. And then he was on four legs, black fur bristling, teeth bared. The world sharpened. Smells became distinct, fear, blood, the rotten copper stink of the creatures below. Sounds crystallized, heartbeats, breathing, the scratch of claws on wood. And underneath it all, a familiar scent, Corso. Darian turned, lips pulling back from his teeth. The man backed up, hands raised. "Easy," Corso said. "It's me. Human me." But the scent was the same as the creatures below. The same wrongness, just better hidden. "Darian," Celine's voice, calm and steady. "Stay with us. We need you here. Present." The wolf wanted to attack, wanted to rip out the source of the corruption, but the human part, barely holding on, recognized the truth. Corso wasn't the enemy. What he'd become was. Darian forced himself to turn away, to focus on the barricaded door. The creatures were getting through, wood splintering under their assault. "When they break through," Celine said, "we hit them hard and fast, drive them back down the stairs, out into the open, then—" The wall exploded. Not the door. The wall itself, brick and mortar erupting inward as something massive crashed through from outside. The main body, the original transformation, hulking and terrible, fur and scales and too many limbs. It had Corso's face, but stretched across a skull twice the size of a human's. And when it opened its mouth, dozens of voices screamed out. "You can't win," it said with Corso's voice and 1,000 others. "I am everything you fear, everything you could be if you embrace the truth." Then it lunged, and the real battle began. Darian met the thing mid-leap. 700 pounds of black wolf collided with something twice that size, and they went down together in a tangle of fur and claws and snapping teeth. The floor buckled under their weight, wood splintering, and for a moment all Darian knew was teeth and pain and the overwhelming wrongness of the thing he was fighting. It had too many joints, too many angles. Every time he tried to get purchase, it bent in ways that shouldn't be possible, sliding out of his grip like water. "Get the families out," Celine was shouting, firing into the mass of smaller creatures still pouring through the broken wall. "Backstairs, now!" Corso grabbed a child, couldn't have been more than 6, and ran. Others followed, scrambling over debris, parents dragging kids through the chaos. But not everyone made it. Darian heard screams cut short, smelled blood mixing with smoke and rot. The main creature threw him off, sent him crashing through what was left of a desk. Wood exploded around him. He rolled, came up snarling, and saw it turning toward the fleeing families. "No." He lunged again, this time going for the throat. His jaws clamped down on something that felt like flesh but tasted like copper and disease. The thing howled, dozens of voices in harmony, and spun, trying to shake him off. Darian held on. His teeth sank deeper, through skin and muscle, and something that might have been bone. Black blood filled his mouth, burning like acid, but he didn't let go. The creature slammed him into the wall. Once. Twice. On the third impact, Darian's grip failed, and he dropped, gasping. His vision swam. Ribs definitely broken, maybe punctured lung. The wolf wanted to keep fighting. The human part knew they were losing. "Darian, move!" Celine's voice, urgent. He rolled left. A massive claw came down where his head had been, gouging deep furrows in the floorboards. Another swipe caught his shoulder, ripping through fur and skin, pain white-hot and immediate. Silver bullets cracked past him, 3 in quick succession. All hit center mass. The creature staggered, but didn't fall. "It's not working." Celine was behind an overturned table, reloading with shaking hands. "The silver's not—" The creature backhanded her. She flew across the room, hit the far wall hard enough to crack plaster, and slumped. Rage flooded through Darian, hot and primal. He forgot strategy, forgot pain, forgot everything except the need to destroy the thing that had hurt her. He charged, all teeth and fury, and this time he didn't aim for the throat. He went for the legs. His jaws closed around what passed for a knee joint, bone crunched. The creature screamed and collapsed sideways, and Darian was on top of it, ripping, tearing, not thinking anymore, just killing. Something grabbed him from behind, human hands pulling him back, Corso's voice in his ear. "Stop! You're making it worse!" Darian tried to shake him off, but Corso held on with desperate strength. "Look at it!" Corso shouted. "Just look!" Darian forced himself to focus. The creature was regenerating. The wounds he'd inflicted were knitting back together, flesh flowing like water, bones snapping back into place. And with each regeneration, it grew. Bigger, more twisted, absorbing the damage and using it to fuel its transformation. "Every time you hurt it, it adapts," Corso said, still gripping Darian's scruff. "You can't kill it with force. You'll just make it stronger." The creature rose, now nearly touching the ceiling. Its body was a nightmare of biology, wolf and human, and something else. All wrong, all fighting for dominance. And those eyes, Corso's eyes, multiplied a dozen times, staring with mad hunger. "Then how?" Darian managed, the words coming out mangled through his wolf throat. "I don't know." Corso let go, stepped back. "But I think it's connected to me, the original body. If I die—" "No." Celine was back on her feet, bleeding from a cut above her eye, but steady. "If you die, it becomes permanent. The split becomes final. We lose any chance of reversing this." "Then what do you suggest?" "We trap it." Celine limped forward, eyes never leaving the creature. "Bind it somehow. Force the two halves back together." "That's insane." "You have a better idea?" The creature laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You can't trap what you don't understand. I am beyond your comprehension, beyond your pathetic attempts at control." It moved faster than anything that size should, covering the distance to Celine in 2 strides. She fired, once, twice, but it swatted the rifle away and grabbed her by the throat. "You should have stayed out of this, little hunter," it said with Corso's voice. "Should have let them kill the wolf and moved on. But you had to play hero." Celine clawed at its hand, gasping. Her face was turning purple. Darian charged again, but smaller creatures intercepted him, swarming from all sides. He fought through them, biting and tearing, but there were too many. They dragged him down through sheer weight, and he felt teeth on his throat, claws raking his flanks. This was it. They were going to die here. Then fire bloomed in the center of the room, not metaphorical fire. Actual flames erupting from nowhere, circling the creature in a ring of heat and light. It screamed and dropped Celine, stumbling back from the blaze. Through the smoke, a figure stepped forward. Mayor Webb, looking older than time itself, holding a burning brand in one hand and a book in the other. Ancient leather, pages yellowed with age. "Binding ritual," he said, voice steady despite the chaos. "My grandmother taught me, for when the old things wake up." "You knew?" Corso stared. "You knew this whole time?" "I knew something was wrong." Webb began reading from the book. Words in a language Darian didn't recognize. The fire spread, following his voice, creating patterns on the floor, symbols that hurt to look at. "I knew when you started asking about transformation magic 3 years ago, when you disappeared for weeks at a time, when you came back changed." The creature howled, thrashing against the flames, but the fire didn't burn. It held, like invisible chains. "I hoped you'd fight it off," Webb continued, still reading. Hoped you'd find a way back. But tonight, when I saw that thing in the church," he looked at Corso, "I knew we'd run out of time." "What is this?" the creature demanded. "What are you doing?" "Bringing you home." Webb's voice broke. "Whether you want it or not." The symbols on the floor began to glow. The creature screamed again, and this time its body started to dissolve, not dying, unraveling, like someone pulling thread from a tapestry. The flesh peeled away in strips, revealing light underneath, harsh, white, burning. And in that light, Darian saw them, dozens of souls, hundreds maybe. Every person the creature had killed, trapped inside it, used as fuel for its transformation. "No," the creature gasped. "No, you can't. They're mine." "They were never yours," Webb said. "You stole them. Time to give them back." The light intensified until Darian had to look away. The room filled with voices, crying, screaming, then singing. A chorus of the dead, finally free. When the light faded, the creature was gone. In its place knelt Corso, naked and shaking, covered in burns. And around him, kneeling in the same positions, were transparent figures. Ghosts, the victims. Catherine Mathers with her red ring. Emma Valdez in her flower shirt. Father Michaels. The Henderson family, all 12. Watching Corso with expressions Darian couldn't read. Not angry, not forgiving. Just present. "I'm sorry," Corso whispered. "I'm so sorry. I never meant—" "We know," Catherine Mathers said, her voice like wind through leaves. "It wasn't you, not really, but it came from you. Your fear, your hate, you fed it until it became real. How do I fix this?" "You can't." Emma Valdez's small voice, heartbreaking in its gentleness. "What's done is done. But you can choose what happens next." The ghosts began to fade, one by one. But before Catherine disappeared, she touched Corso's forehead. "Don't waste our deaths. Learn from them. Be better." Then she was gone. They all were. Corso collapsed forward, sobbing. Webb moved to him, put a hand on his shoulder, said nothing. Sometimes there were no words. Darian shifted back to human, the transformation easier now without the creature's corruption fouling the air. His body screamed protest, broken ribs, torn muscles, silver burns. But he made it to Celine's side. She was sitting against the wall, rubbing her throat. "That was insane," Darian finished. "Completely insane. I was going to say effective, but sure." She coughed, winced. "Is it over?" "I don't know." They looked at Corso. The man had gone still, head bowed, breathing shallow. After a long moment, he looked up. His eyes were different, clearer, and infinitely tired. "It's not over," he said quietly. "The binding separated us, but it didn't destroy it. The beast is still out there, just trapped, dormant." "Where?" Webb asked. Corso touched his chest. "Here, inside, where it started. I can feel it, like a second heartbeat, waiting." "For what?" "For me to lose control again, for my fear to override my humanity. It'll always be there waiting for a crack." "Then we kill it," Celine said flatly. "Cut it out. End this permanently." "You can't." Corso stood on shaking legs. "We tried that. You saw what happened. It just gets stronger. The only way to destroy it is to starve it. And that means—" He looked at his hands. "That means I can never be what I tried to become. No transformation, no power, just human, permanently." The weight of that settled over the room. For someone who'd spent years trying to transcend his limitations, the idea of accepting them must have been crushing. "I can live with that," Corso said, "if it means no one else dies." "Noble," Celine said. "But what happens when you slip? When the beast gets out again?" "Then you kill me." Corso met her eyes. "I'm giving you permission now. If it happens again, if I start to change, you end it. No hesitation, no mercy." "Daniel," Webb started, "it's the only way." Corso's voice was firm. "And we all know it." Darian studied him. The man had aged a decade in the past hour. Everything about him screamed exhaustion and guilt and a determination born from hitting absolute bottom. "There might be another option," Darian said slowly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Pack bonds," he continued. When a wolf is struggling with their nature going feral, the pack can anchor them, share the burden. It's not perfect, but it might keep the beast contained. I'm not a wolf, Corso said. No. But you've got wolf essence in you now. Twisted, yeah, but it's there. If we create a formal bond, if you join the pack as a human adjunct, we might be able to help you manage it. Corso stared. You'd do that? After everything I've done? You didn't do it. The thing wearing your face did. Darian extended a hand. And right now, you're trying to make it right. That counts for something. Corso looked at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he took it. I don't deserve this. Probably not. But we don't survive on what we deserve. We survive on what we build together. Webb cleared his throat. Touching as this is, we have a bigger problem. The town saw what happened here. They heard the screaming, and they're going to want answers. As if on cue, voices rose from the street below. The crowd, smaller now, but still angry, still afraid, demanding to know what was happening. Let me handle them, Webb said. He picked up his book, now just leather and ash, and headed for the stairs. What are you going to tell them? Celine called after him. Webb paused. The truth. That we were attacked by something beyond our understanding. That we survived because we worked together. And that the real monster wasn't the one we feared. It was the one we created through our own prejudice and hate. They won't believe you. Maybe not tonight, but they'll remember, and maybe that's enough. He descended. They could hear his voice, measured and calm, addressing the crowd. The angry shouting began to die down. Darian helped Celine to her feet. She swayed, caught herself. We should leave. Soon as it's light, we should get out of Raven Rest, before they change their minds about you. No. She blinked. No? This is my home. These are my people. I ran once, 8 years ago, from a different town with different fears. I'm not running again. Even if they still want you dead? Even then. Darian looked at Corso. Someone needs to stay. Make sure the peace holds. Make sure what happened here doesn't happen again. That's a tall order for someone who was almost hanged this morning, Celine pointed out. Yeah, well. Darian managed a smile. I've always been terrible at taking the easy path. Corso laughed. Actually laughed. You know what? So have I. They stood there, 3 people who had every reason to hate each other, united by the simple fact that they'd survived the night. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was something. Footsteps on the stairs. Marcus the blacksmith appeared, looking sheepish. Mayor Webb said to come up. Said you might need... He stopped, seeing the destruction. What in hell happened here? Long story, Darian said. Try me. So they told him. The whole thing, Corso's experiments, the split, the creature, the binding. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through disbelief, horror, and finally, grudging acceptance. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, he said when they finished. You believe us? Celine asked. I saw the thing in the church, saw it burn with my own eyes. Marcus looked at Darian, and I saw you fight it. Risk your life for people who wanted you dead. He held out his hand. I'm sorry for everything I said, for not trusting you. Darian shook it. You were scared. We all were. Still am, honestly, but... Marcus glanced at Corso. If the mayor can forgive him, I guess I can forgive you. I haven't forgiven him, Webb's voice from the doorway. Forgiveness takes time, but I'm willing to work toward it. That's more than most get. The old man looked exhausted, but satisfied. The crowd's dispersing. I've called a town meeting for tomorrow evening. Full transparency, no more secrets. We're going to discuss what happened, what we do next, and how we make sure it never happens again. Oh, they're going to want someone to blame, Corso said quietly. They'll blame me first. I'm the mayor. I should have seen this coming. Webb sat on a broken chair, wincing. But you're right. They'll want accountability. And you'll have to answer for your part. We all will. I'm ready. Good. Because it's going to be brutal. Silence fell. Outside, the first hints of dawn were touching the sky. The night had lasted forever, but morning was coming anyway. Celine moved to the broken wall, looking out over the town. Smoke still rose from the church. The Henderson house was a blackened shell, but people were already moving in the streets, starting to clean up, starting to rebuild. You know what's weird? She said. This place almost tore itself apart tonight. But now, she gestured at the activity below. They're coming together, working as one. Crisis does that, Darian said, joining her. Reveals who people really are, for better or worse. Which are they? He watched a group of men forming a bucket brigade to put out the last of the fires. Saw women distributing food and water to those who'd lost homes. Kids helping where they could, too young to understand the full horror, but old enough to know people needed help. Better, he said. Mostly, with room to improve. Celine smiled. Optimist. Realist. I've seen worse. Yeah, me too. They stood there watching the sunrise over Ravenrest. Behind them, Corso and Webb were already discussing next steps. Security measures. Investigation procedures. How to prevent another tragedy. Marcus had gone to help with the cleanup, and for the first time in days, Darian felt the knot in his chest loosen. Not gone. Never gone. But manageable. So, Celine said after a while. What now? Now? Darian stretched, feeling every ache and bruise. Now we face the consequences. Stand before the town. Let them decide our fate. You really think they'll let you stay? I think they'll have questions, and I'll answer them, honestly. No more hiding. That's brave. That's desperate. But sometimes they're the same thing. Celine laughed softly. Then, I should go. This isn't my fight anymore. Something twisted in Darian's chest. Where will you go? North. There's another town with similar problems. Failed transformations. I've been tracking the pattern, someone spreading the technique, teaching people how to force the change. I need to find the source. Alone? I work better alone. Do you? Darian turned to face her. Because from where I'm standing, you just spent the night fighting alongside people, trusting them, saving them. That's different. How? She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know. Then stay. Help us rebuild. We could use someone with your skills. I'm not a town person. I'm a drifter. You're someone who cares enough to risk her life for strangers. That's exactly who we need. Celine looked at him, something complicated in her expression. You don't know me. I know you stepped in front of a lynch mob to defend a man you'd never met. I know you broke me out of jail when it would have been easier to walk away. I know you faced down a nightmare to save people who owed you nothing. He met her eyes. That's enough. It's not that simple. It never is. She was quiet for a long time, then, ask me again tomorrow, after the town meeting. If they don't run you out, or worse, maybe we can talk. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Fair enough, Darian said. The sun cleared the mountains, bathing Ravenrest in golden light. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it just illuminated the damage, the burned buildings, the broken streets, the faces of people who'd survived but lost something in the process. We should go down, Corso said from behind them. People will want to see us, see that we're still here. Are we? Darian asked. Still here, I mean, or are we just... He gestured vaguely. Going through the motions. Both, probably. Corso moved to join them at the broken wall. But that's life, isn't it? Going through the motions until they become real again. That's bleak. That's honest. They descended together, 3 people who'd fought together, bled together, and somehow survived. The town square was chaos, people everywhere cleaning debris, tending wounded, trying to make sense of what had happened. When they emerged from the town hall, the square went quiet. Every eye turned toward them. Darian forced himself to stand straight, meet their gazes. Some were hostile, some were curious. A few, not many, but a few, looked almost grateful. Where do we start? Celine murmured. The beginning, Darian said. We tell them everything. Let them judge. And if they choose wrong, then we deal with it. Webb stepped forward, raising his hands for silence. The crowd reluctantly quieted. People of Ravenrest, the mayor began. Last night, we faced something none of us were prepared for. Something that challenged everything we thought we knew about safety, about trust, about what it means to be a community. But murmurs ran through the crowd. But we survived, Webb continued. Not because we were strong, not because we were prepared. We survived because in our darkest moment, we chose to stand together, to look beyond our fears and our prejudices and see each other as we truly are. Pretty speech, someone called out. But who's responsible? Who pays for what happened? I do. Corso stepped forward. The crowd shifted, uneasy. What attacked us last night? It came from me, from my fear, my arrogance, my belief that I could force nature to bend to my will. The crowd erupted, angry shouts, demands for justice, for blood. Corso waited for it to die down. Then, I can't undo what I did, can't bring back the dead, but I can promise you this, I will spend the rest of my life making sure it never happens again. I will rebuild what I destroyed. I will serve this town not as its security chief, but as its most humble citizen. And if that's not enough, if you want my life in exchange, he spread his arms. Here I am. Silence. Heavy and complete. Then a voice from the back. What about Blackmore? He was supposed to hang. All eyes turned to Darian. He stepped forward. I'm not leaving. I know some of you still think I'm a threat, that shifters can't be trusted. And you know what? You're not completely wrong. We are dangerous. We do have power you don't. But he looked at the faces in the crowd, finding the ones he recognized. I've lived among you for 8 years, protected your families, mourned your dead, built a life here. This is my home. And if you'll let me, I'd like to keep it that way. Why should we? Marcus spoke up, but his tone was different now. Not hostile, questioning. Why should we trust you when we've been taught our whole lives that your kind are monsters? Because I am a monster, Darian said simply. But that's not all I am. I'm also your neighbor, your friend, someone who cares whether this town survives. And if that's not enough, he gestured at the destruction around them. Look at what happened when we let fear drive our decisions. Look at the price we paid. The crowd stirred. No agreement, not yet, but doubt, uncertainty, the beginnings of reconsideration. We're calling a full town meeting tonight, Webb said. Everyone will have a chance to speak, to ask questions, to decide together what kind of community we want to be. But right now, he looked at the sunrise. Right now, we have work to do. Buildings to repair, families to comfort, dead to bury. And him? Someone pointed at Corso. What do we do with him? He works alongside us, Webb said firmly. Under supervision, under watch. But he works. We all do. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. The crowd began to disperse slowly, people drifting toward various tasks. Some cast dark looks at Darian and Corso as they passed. Others nodded, brief and cautious. Marcus approached, looking uncomfortable. My daughter wanted me to... He stopped, tried again. She wanted me to say thank you for what you did, fighting that thing. How is she? Darian asked. Scared, but alive. Marcus extended his hand. I'm not saying we're friends. Not saying I trust you completely, but maybe we can start over, build something better. Darian shook it. That's all I'm asking. Marcus nodded and walked away. Selene watched him go. That went better than expected. Don't celebrate yet, Corso said. We've got about 12 hours before the real reckoning. People will have time to think, to talk, to build their anger back up. Tonight could go very differently. Then we prepare. Darian turned to face the rising sun. We gather our evidence. We practice our testimony, and we hope... He stopped. Something was wrong. The air had changed, grown heavier, colder. And in the distance, beyond the town's edge, something howled. Not a wolf's howl, not the creature's scream. Something else. Something new. Corso's face went white. No, it's not possible. The binding... Trap the beast inside you, Selene finished. But what if it wasn't the only one? The howl came again, closer now, and with it, an answering call from the west. Then another from the south. Multiple sources. Multiple threats. The symbols, Webb said, horror dawning in his eyes. The ones the creature carved at the crime scenes. I thought they were just... He pulled out his book, flipped through pages with shaking hands. No, they were markers, calls to others like it. How many? Darian asked. I don't... Webb found the page, went even paler. 12. One for each victim. It was creating them, spreading the curse. So killing the original didn't solve anything, Selene said flatly. It just freed the others to act independently. The howls were getting louder. Multiple voices now, harmonizing in a chorus of hunger and madness. Darian's wolf stirred, exhausted but alert. They'd just survived one nightmare. Now another was beginning. "We need to evacuate," Webb said. "Get everyone to the center of town. Fortify." "Won't work." Corso's voice was hollow. "I've seen how they think. They'll surround us, pick us off. We need—" He stopped, something fierce entering his expression. "We need to hunt them, before they hunt us." "With what?" Marcus had returned, drawn by the howls. "We're barely armed, barely organized." "Then we fix that." Darian turned to face the crowd, raising his voice. "Everyone, listen to me." The square went quiet again. "New threat incoming," Darian said, pointing at the forest edge. "Multiple hostiles, same as what we fought last night. We have two choices, run or fight. Running means they pick us off one by one. Fighting means we stand together, we coordinate, we become the thing they fear." "You want us to fight those things?" someone shouted. "We're not soldiers." "Neither am I. But I'm also not going to watch my home burn because I was too scared to defend it." Darian looked at Corso. "You know their patterns, their weaknesses. What do we do?" Corso's hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "We divide them, force them into kill zones. Use silver and fire. Those are the only things that work permanently. And we—" He swallowed hard. "We don't give them time to regenerate." "Who leads?" Marcus asked. Darian and Corso looked at each other. A week ago, they'd been enemies. Hours ago, one had been ready to execute the other. Now they were all that stood between the town and extinction. "We both do," Darian said. "Corso knows tactics. I know how to fight as a wolf. Between us—" Another howl. This one from inside the town. They were already here. "No more time," Selene said, loading her rifle. "We move now or we die." Corso grabbed a weapon from a nearby deputy. "Marcus, gather every able-bodied person with combat experience. Webb, get the non-combatants to the church basement. It's stone, should hold." "The church is half burned," Webb protested. "Then use the school. Anywhere with solid walls and few windows." People scattered, moving with terrified efficiency. Darian shifted, the transformation coming easier now despite his injuries. The wolf form would be faster, stronger, more useful. Through his enhanced senses, he caught them now. 4 distinct scents circling the town, coordinating, intelligent. This wasn't going to be like the mindless swarm from before. These things could think, could plan, could kill with purpose. "Darian," Selene's hand on his fur, gentle. "Don't die on me, okay? We still have that conversation tomorrow." He couldn't respond in words, but he pressed against her hand, a brief moment of connection. Then he was gone, racing toward the nearest threat. Behind him, the town mobilized. Frightened people grabbing weapons they barely knew how to use, preparing to defend their homes against something they couldn't understand. And somewhere in the chaos, Corso stood alone, feeling the thing inside him stir. Hungry, eager, wanting to join its brethren in the hunt. He pushed it down, locked it away. But he could feel it straining against the binding, cracks forming. How long before he lost control again? How long before he became the very thing he was trying to stop? Darian reached the eastern edge and saw it. Bigger than the one in the church, more complete. It had the shape of a wolf, but with human hands and a face that shifted between species. And it was fast. It saw him, smiled with too many teeth, then it attacked. And the battle for Ravenrest's soul truly began. The creature hit Darian like a freight train, all claws and teeth and impossible angles. They rolled through the dirt, snapping at each other, and Darian got his jaws around what should have been a foreleg, but bent wrong, twisted out of his grip like oil. He twisted with it, using momentum instead of fighting it, and managed to rake his claws down its flank. Black blood sprayed. The thing screamed, not pain, excitement, and lunged for his throat. Darian dropped flat, let it sail over him, then came up fast and went for the exposed underbelly. His teeth found purchase in something soft, and he ripped sideways. The creature's innards spilled out, not organs, writhing masses of something between muscle and root system, pulsing with sickly light. "Aim for the core!" Corso's voice, distant but clear. He was on the western edge, fighting his own battle. The glowing part! That's what keeps them alive! Darian didn't waste time questioning. He dove back in, ignoring the flailing limbs, and bit down on the pulsing mass. It tasted like copper and rot and something electric that made his teeth ache. The creature convulsed. Its body began to collapse inward, flesh dissolving into ash. Within seconds, nothing remained but a scorched outline on the ground. One down. Darian lifted his head, scenting the air. 3 more. One to the west with Corso, one south where Celine had gone, and one north, moving fast toward the school where the non-combatants were sheltering. He ran. The streets were a maze of debris and frightened people. Some were setting up barricades, following Corso's shouted instructions. Others just stood frozen, overwhelmed. Darian vaulted over a fallen cart and nearly collided with a group of kids being herded toward safety by Mrs. Chen. She saw him, went pale, then seemed to remember he was on their side. "The school," she gasped. "It's heading for the school." He was already moving. The school was a 2-story brick building at the north edge of town, solid and defensible. But solid walls meant nothing when the enemy could tear through them like paper. Darian heard screaming as he approached, high-pitched, terrified. Children. He crashed through the front door and froze. The creature had a girl cornered, maybe 10 years old, backed against a wall, crying. It was toying with her, taking its time, savoring the fear. Darian's vision went red. He hit the thing from the side with everything he had. They went through the wall together, brick exploding around them, tumbling into the schoolyard. Darian didn't let up. He bit and clawed and tore, fighting with a fury that went beyond strategy or self-preservation. This thing had threatened a child, his child, in the sense that every kid in Ravenrest was under pack protection, and that made it personal. The creature fought back, but Darian was past caring about pain. He took hits that should have crippled him and kept going. Found the core, a pulsing knot of light at the center of its chest, and ripped it out with his teeth. The thing dissolved. Darian stood over the ashes, panting, bleeding from a dozen wounds. "Behind you!" He spun. Another creature, where had it come from? Lunging from the shadows. No time to dodge, then silver bullets tore through it, 3 rapid shots that shredded its core before it could reach him. It collapsed mid-leap and dissolved. Celine stood in the doorway, rifle still raised. "You're welcome." Darian shifted back to human, gasping. "Thought you were on the south side." "I was." "Killed mine, came to help." She lowered the rifle, studying him. "You're bleeding a lot." "I'll heal." "Will you?" She moved closer, examining the wounds. Some were already closing, but others, deep ones that had hit bone, were sluggish. "Silver in your system's still suppressing you." "I'll manage." Stubborn. Practical. A crash from the west. They both turned. "That's Corso," Celine said. "He's still fighting." They ran. The western edge was chaos. Corso had gathered about 20 townspeople, hunters mostly, people who knew weapons, and they'd created a kill zone using overturned wagons and furniture. The 4th creature was circling, testing defenses, looking for weakness. And it was learning. Darian could see it adapting, changing tactics each time they repelled it. "It's too smart," Marcus gasped, reloading a shotgun with shaking hands. "It's watching us, figuring out patterns." "Then we changed the pattern," Corso said. He was bleeding from a gash across his forehead, but his eyes were sharp. "Darian, can you draw it toward the old mill?" Darian followed his gaze. The mill was 100 yards west, abandoned for years, built right on the edge of the river. "What's at the mill?" Celine asked. "Running water," Corso said. "These things, they're like the original, part wolf, part human, part something else. And that something else doesn't like running water. It breaks their cohesion." "How do you know that?" Corso's expression darkened. "Because I know what I used to create them. And one ingredient was grave dirt, old magic, the kind that can't cross running water without losing power." "That's folklore," Marcus said. "Folklore exists for a reason." Corso looked at Darian. "Can you lead it there?" "Yeah." Darian shifted again, feeling the toll it was taking. Each transformation was harder, slower. His body was reaching its limit, but limits were just suggestions when people's lives were at stake. He howled a challenge, an insult, everything calculated to enrage the creature, and bolted for the mill. It took the bait. He heard it behind him, crashing through obstacles, gaining ground. Fast, too fast. Darian pushed harder, muscles screaming. The mill loomed ahead, half collapsed, the old water wheel still turning sluggishly in the current. He could see the river beyond it, swift and cold. 20 yards. 10. 5. He leaped through the open doorway just as claws raked his hindquarters. Pain exploded up his spine. He stumbled, rolled, came up inside the mill. The creature followed. Darian dove through the far side where the wall had collapsed into the river. He hit the water and the cold was a shock, driving the air from his lungs. The current grabbed him immediately, pulling him downstream. Behind him, the creature reached the water's edge and stopped. It paced, snarling, but didn't enter. Couldn't enter. Corso had been right. Darian dragged himself onto the far bank, shifted back to human, and watched. The creature was pacing faster now, agitated. Its body was starting to flicker, like a bad transmission. The water, just the proximity to it, was disrupting whatever force held it together. Then Celine's voice rang out from across the river. "Hey, ugly!" The creature turned. She was standing on the mill's roof, rifle aimed. "Catch!" She threw something, a bottle, lit fuse trailing smoke. The creature caught it on instinct. The bottle shattered, oil splashed across its body, and the flame caught instantly. Fire and water. The two things it couldn't withstand. The creature burned and screamed and tried to flee, but the river cut off one direction and the flames the other. Within seconds, it was ash joining the current. Silence fell. Just the sound of the water and Darian's ragged breathing. Celine climbed down from the roof, crossed the river on exposed stones, and crouched beside him. Still alive? Barely. Good enough. She pulled off her jacket, wrapped it around his shoulders. 4 down. That's all of them, right? I don't know. Darian's voice was hoarse. How do we know that's all? We don't. Corso appeared from the tree line, Marcus and 3 others with him. But Webb's been checking the crime scenes. 12 markers, 12 creatures. If the pattern holds, it's over, Marcus finished. He looked at Darian with something like respect. You killed 3 yourself. 2. Celine got the last one. Still. Marcus extended his hand, helped Darian to his feet. That was, he stopped, tried again. Thank you. Thank you for not shooting me. Marcus barked a laugh. Yeah, well, day's not over yet. They limped back to town together. The sun was fully up now, revealing the full extent of the damage. Buildings destroyed, streets torn up, and in the center of the square a crowd gathering. The town meeting Webb had called for evening. It was happening now. People were too wired, too frightened, too desperate for answers to wait. We should clean up first, Celine muttered, looking at their collective state. Blood, ash, torn clothes. They looked like they'd fought a war. They had. No, Darian said. Let them see. Let them see what it cost. They walked into the square, and the crowd parted. Some faces showed fear, others gratitude. Most were just tired. Webb stood on the platform, looking older than ever. People of Raven Rest, we've survived the night, but at a cost. How many dead? Someone called out. 14, plus the 12 from before. 26 lives lost. Webb's voice shook. 26 souls who trusted us to keep them safe. And we did keep them safe, Corso said, stepping forward. The last 4 creatures, they're gone. Destroyed. No more threat. Because of him, a woman pointed at Darian. Because of the monster we tried to hang. The square went quiet. I'm not a monster, Darian said, too tired for diplomacy. I'm a wolf. There's a difference. Monsters kill for pleasure. I kill to protect. You're both, Marcus said. Everyone turned to stare at him. What? I'm just being honest. You are dangerous. You do have power, we don't. But you're also... He gestured helplessly. You're also the guy who saved my kid, who fought things that terrified the rest of us. So yeah, you're dangerous. But you're our dangerous. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Not agreement, but consideration. He created those things, someone else said, pointing at Corso. He's the reason they existed at all. I am, Corso said simply. I wanted power I hadn't earned. I tried to force a transformation I wasn't ready for, and it created something evil, something that killed innocent people. He looked at the crowd. I can't change that. Can't undo it. But I can promise you this. I will spend every day for the rest of my life trying to prevent it from happening again. That's not enough, a man shouted. You should hang. Maybe, Corso agreed. Maybe that's justice. But if you hang me, you lose someone who knows how these creatures work, how they think, how to stop them if they ever appear again. They won't appear again if you're dead. You don't know that. Celine's voice cut through. I've been tracking failed transformations across 3 territories. Corso's not the only one who tried this. There are others out there right now, experimenting, hunting. And if you kill the one person who understands the process, who can teach you to recognize the signs, then the next time this happens, you'll be helpless. The crowd shifted, uncertain. She's right, Webb said. I don't like it any more than you do, but we need knowledge more than we need revenge. What about justice? The woman who'd lost her husband stepped forward. Catherine Mather's sister, Darian remembered. What about my family? Don't they deserve justice? They deserve the truth, Webb said quietly. And the truth is, this wasn't personal. It was tragedy. A man reached too far, broke something fundamental, and the consequences spread. No amount of revenge will bring your loved ones back, but learning from this, making sure it never happens again, that honors them. She stared at him, tears streaming. Then slowly she nodded. The tension broke. Not completely. There was still anger, still grief, but the immediate bloodlust faded. We're calling a formal inquiry, Webb announced. Full investigation into what happened, how it happened, and how we prevent it. Corso will testify. Darian will testify. Anyone with information will have a chance to speak. And then what? Marcus asked. What happens to them after? Webb looked at Darian, at Corso, at Celine. That depends on them, he said, on whether they choose to be part of this community, part of the solution, or whether they walk away. All eyes turned to the 3 of them. Darian spoke first. I'm staying. This is my home. I'm not running anymore. Corso nodded. I'm staying. I owe these people everything. I'll work until I've repaid even a fraction of that debt. Celine hesitated. Everyone waited. She looked at Darian, at the town, at the faces watching her. I'm staying, temporarily, until I'm sure this is really over. Temporarily works, Webb said. For now, you're all under probationary status. You work, you help rebuild, and you prove every day that you're worth the trust we're placing in you. What about our packs? Darian asked. The wolves in the mountains. They're part of this community too. Then bring them in, Webb said. Officially. No more informal arrangements. We draw up contracts, legal protections. Make this cooperation formal and binding. It was more than Darian had dared hope for. You do that? We just fought side by side against things that wanted us all dead. Species didn't matter then. Won't matter now. Webb looked at the crowd. Anyone object? Silence. Not enthusiastic silence, but acceptance. Then it's settled. Webb stepped down from the platform. Let's get to work. The crowd dispersed, people moving toward various tasks. Cleanup, burial preparations, tending the wounded, the work of survival. Marcus approached, looking embarrassed. My wife wanted me to invite you 3 to dinner. Tonight. It's not fancy or anything, but we'd be honored, Darian said. Marcus smiled, relieved. Good, okay, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. He hurried off. Celine watched him go. That's unexpected. People surprise you, Darian said, when you give them the chance. They stood there, 3 people who'd gone from strangers to allies in the span of a night. Exhausted, injured, but alive. I need sleep, Celine said. About 12 hours of it. You and me both, Corso agreed. There's an inn on the south side, Darian said. Owner's decent. Tell her I sent you. Where are you going? Darian looked toward the mountains. To get my pack. They need to know what happened, need to decide if they want to be part of this. They will, Celine said with certainty. How do you know? Because you'll tell them the truth. And the truth is, Ravenrest just became the first town in 3 territories to offer shifters legal protection. That's worth staying for. She was right. It was worth staying for. Darian shifted one last time, the transformation agonizing now, his body screaming protest, and ran for the mountains. The pack house was 10 miles north, hidden in a valley that most humans couldn't find. Darian's beta, Marcus the Wolf, they'd have to figure out a better naming system, met him at the tree line. "We heard the fighting," Marcus the Wolf said, shifting to human. "Wanted to come help, but you'd said to stay clear of town. Plans changed." Darian filled him in quickly. The creatures, the battle, the town's offer. Marcus the Wolf listened without interrupting. When Darian finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Legal protection," he said finally. "In writing. Enforceable." "Yes. And all we have to do is, what, patrol? Help with security? And live openly. No more hiding what we are." "Some of the pack won't like that." "I know. It's their choice. Anyone who wants to leave, I won't stop them." Marcus the Wolf studied him. "You've changed since yesterday. You're—" He searched for the word, settled, like you've made peace with something. "I almost died about 6 times in the last 12 hours. Gives you perspective." "Or brain damage." Darian laughed. Actually laughed. It felt good. "Call everyone together. Let them decide. We vote as a pack. And if they vote no, then I stay anyway. As an individual. Not as alpha." "You'd give up the pack?" "I'd give them the choice. That's what alphas do. Put the pack first." Marcus the Wolf gripped his shoulder. "I'll call the meeting, but Darian, for what it's worth, I think you're right. This is what we've been waiting for. A chance to be part of something instead of always apart from it." The pack gathered within the hour. 23 wolves, ranging from teenagers to elders. Darian laid out the situation, answered questions, and then stepped back. "This is your decision," he said. "I won't force it. Anyone who wants to leave, go with my blessing. Anyone who wants to stay, welcome to a new world." They voted. Not unanimously, 3 left, uncomfortable with the visibility, but the rest stayed. 20 wolves, choosing to bet on a future where they didn't have to hide. By the time Darian returned to Ravenrest, the sun was setting. The town looked different in the orange light, still damaged, but alive. People working together, human and shifter side by side. He found Celine and Corso at Marcus the blacksmith's house. The dinner was simple, stew and bread, but the company was genuine. Marcus's daughter, the one Darian had saved from drowning last spring, kept staring at him with wide eyes. "You're really a wolf?" she asked. "Really am." "That's so cool." Her mother laughed. "Don't get ideas, sweetie. You're human through and through." "But I could be friends with wolves, right?" Everyone looked at Darian. "Yeah," he said. "You could be friends with wolves." The girl beamed. After dinner, they walked through town. The square was quieter now, most people asleep. But lanterns still burned in windows, signs of life, of continuity. "You think this will last?" Celine asked. "The peace?" "I don't know," Darian admitted. "But I think it's got a chance. More than it did yesterday." "That's something." They reached the town hall. Corso had set up a temporary command center inside, coordinating rebuilding efforts. He looked up when they entered. "Council's approved the contracts," he said. "Legal protection for all registered shifters within town limits. Hunting rights, property ownership, the works." "Registered?" Darian raised an eyebrow. "Optional registration. We're not forcing anyone. But those who register get legal protections. Those who don't." Corso shrugged. "They're on their own." "Fair enough." Celine was studying a map on the wall, marked with locations. "What's this?" "Possible sites of other experiments," Corso said quietly. "Based on what I remember from my research, I wasn't the only one trying to force transformations. There are at least 6 others I know of. Maybe more. And you're tracking them?" "Someone has to." Corso looked at her. "You said you've been hunting failed transformations. I've been creating them. Between us—" "We might actually stop this before it spreads," Celine finished. She considered. "I work alone." "I know. I don't do partners." "Understood." "But," she sighed, "I guess I could use someone who knows what to look for, on a trial basis." Corso smiled. "Trial basis works." Darian watched them, feeling something settle in his chest. They were broken people, all three of them, damaged by trauma and choices and circumstances beyond their control. But they were trying, and sometimes trying was enough. "I should go," he said. "My pack's moving into the old Hendricks property tomorrow. Need to help them settle in." "The place on the East Ridge?" Corso asked. "That's good land." "Yeah, and close enough to town that we can respond if—" Darian stopped. "When?" "When there's trouble." "Not if," Celine asked. "There's always trouble, but now we face it together." He left them there, planning their next move. Outside, the night was cool and clear, stars visible through breaks in the smoke. And for the first time in days, Darian felt something approaching peace. Not contentment. He'd lost too much for that. But purpose, direction, hope. He shifted and ran toward the mountains, toward his pack, toward a future that was uncertain but no longer impossible. Behind him, Ravenrest slept, battered but not broken, changed but not destroyed. And somewhere in the darkness, the town's new alliance, wolf and human, broken and healing, took its first real breath. Tomorrow would bring challenges, questions, the hard work of turning promises into reality. But tonight, they'd earned rest. They'd earned survival. And that was victory enough. 3 weeks later, Darian stood in front of the reconstructed town hall and realized he was nervous. Not the bone-deep terror of facing execution, not the adrenaline spike of fighting monsters, just ordinary nervousness, the kind that came from caring about outcomes you couldn't control. "You're fidgeting," Celine said beside him. She'd cleaned up for the occasion, actual pants instead of field gear, hair brushed, blood washed off for once. "Stop it. You look guilty." "I feel guilty." "You didn't do anything wrong." "Tell that to the council." The formal inquiry had taken 3 weeks. 3 weeks of testimony, evidence review, and endless debates about what had actually happened and who bore responsibility. Today was the verdict. Corso emerged from the building looking hollow-eyed. He'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. The weight of 26 deaths would do that. But he was clean-shaven, dressed properly, facing judgment with something like dignity. "They're ready," he said. Inside, the council chamber was packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls. The entire town had turned out to hear this. Mayor Webb sat at the center of the council table, flanked by 6 others, Marcus the blacksmith among them, representing the trades. A new position created after the attacks. More voices, more perspectives. "We'll hear from the inquiry committee first," Webb said. His voice was steadier than it had been 3 weeks ago. The crisis had changed him too, burned away the uncertainty, left something harder underneath. Magistrate Helena Voss stood. She was from 2 towns over, brought in specifically because she had no stake in Ravenrest's politics. Mid-50s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for fairness that bordered on ruthlessness. "After extensive review," she began, "we've reached several conclusions. First, the attacks on Ravenrest were perpetrated by artificially created entities, spawned from Daniel Corso's failed attempt at forced transformation." The crowd murmured. Corso didn't react. "Second, while Mr. Corso bears responsibility for creating the initial threat, the spread of the infection was unintentional. He did not knowingly create the derivative creatures." "Doesn't make the dead any less dead," someone muttered. "No," Voss agreed. "It doesn't." Which brings us to our third finding. Darian Blackmore and his pack had no involvement in the attacks. All evidence against them was planted by the derivative creatures or by Corso's corrupted consciousness during blackout periods. She looked directly at Darian. "Mr. Blackmore, on behalf of this inquiry and the town of Ravenrest, I apologize for the injustice done to you. You were falsely accused, falsely imprisoned, and nearly executed for crimes you did not commit." The chamber went silent. Darian stood. "I appreciate that, but I'd rather we focus on what comes next than what already happened." "Pragmatic," Voss said with something like approval. "Very well. Our fourth finding, the integration of shifter packs into Ravenrest's defensive structure proved essential to survival. Without Mr. Blackmore's knowledge and combat capability, casualties would have been significantly higher." "How much higher?" someone asked. "Projections suggest at least 60 additional deaths," Voss said flatly. "Possibly more." The creatures were targeting population centers. Mr. Blackmore's tactical decisions redirected them to less populated areas. He also killed 3 of the 4 main threats personally, Marcus added, while we were still figuring out which end of a gun to point. A few people laughed, nervous but genuine. Which brings us to our recommendations, Voss continued. We propose the following actions. 1. Formal exoneration of Darian Blackmore and his pack. 2. Official recognition of shifters as legal residents with full rights and protections. 3. Establishment of a joint human shifter security force to handle future supernatural threats. She paused. And 4. Supervised rehabilitation and community service for Daniel Corso in lieu of execution. The chamber erupted, shouting, arguing, people jumping to their feet. "He killed my brother!" a man yelled. "He didn't." Celine's voice cut through. She was standing now too, face hard. "A thing wearing his face killed your brother. A thing he's spent every day since trying to destroy. That's just semantics. It's the difference between murder and tragedy," Webb said, slamming his gavel. "Order! We will have order!" The noise died down, reluctantly. "I understand the anger," Webb continued. "I feel it too. But executing Corso doesn't solve our problem. It just eliminates someone who understands the threat, someone who can help prevent this from happening elsewhere." "So he gets to walk free?" Catherine Mather's sister, Rebecca, stood. "After what he did?" "He'll be under constant supervision," Voss said. "Magical bindings to prevent transformation, monthly evaluations, any sign of relapse, and the sentence converts to execution immediately." "That's not enough," Rebecca said, but her voice had lost its edge. "It's not. He should suffer." "He is suffering," Darian said quietly. "Every day, every time he looks in a mirror, every time he remembers what he created. Trust me, that's worse than death." Rebecca looked at him, eyes wet. "You really believe that?" "I know it. I've seen him these past 3 weeks. The man's being eaten alive by guilt." "Good," Rebecca said, but she sat down. Webb looked around the chamber. "We'll put it to a vote. All in favor of the inquiry's recommendations?" Hands rose, not all of them, not even most, but enough. "Motion carries," Webb said. "The recommendations are adopted." More murmuring, but the fight had gone out of it. People were tired of fighting. "One more thing," Webb said. "We're establishing a new position, liaison of interspecies relations. Someone to bridge the gap between human and shifter communities, ensure communication, prevent misunderstandings." He looked at Darian. "We'd like you to take the position." Darian blinked. "I'm not qualified." "You're the only one qualified. You understand both sides. Both communities trust you, or they're learning to." "I'm not a politician." "Good. We have enough of those." Webb smiled slightly. "What we need is someone who'll tell us the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." Darian looked at Celine. She shrugged. "Don't look at me. I'm leaving in 2 days." That hit harder than Darian expected. "You're going?" "Corso and I tracked another transformation site, 3 territories east. I need to investigate before it spreads." She met his eyes. "You knew I wasn't staying." "I hoped." "Hope's dangerous, so's hunting alone." "I won't be alone. Corso's coming." Corso nodded. "Someone needs to clean up my mess. Might as well be me." "When do you leave?" Darian asked. "Dawn. Day after tomorrow." 2 days. It wasn't enough time, but then it never would be. "I'll take the position," Darian said to Webb. "On one condition. I stay active with the pack. I'm not giving that up." "Wouldn't ask you to," Webb said. "We need you to maintain those connections. That's the whole point." They hammered out details for another hour. Salary, modest but fair. Office space, a room in the rebuilt town hall. Authority, advisory, not executive. Darian wouldn't be making policy, but he'd have input on anything affecting shifter-human relations. It was more than he'd ever imagined having, less than what was needed. About right for a first step. The meeting adjourned. People filed out, some nodding to Darian, others still wary. Change took time. Rebecca approached as Darian was leaving. "I don't forgive him," she said without preamble. "Corso, I can't." "You don't have to." "But—" She stopped, started again. "But I'm glad you're staying. Catherine would have liked that. She always said we needed to work together." humans and shifters. She was right. Yeah, Rebecca's voice broke. She usually was. She walked away quickly before the tears could fall. Darian found Celine outside, sitting on the steps. The evening was cool, stars just beginning to show. "Hell of a day," she said. "Hell of a month." He sat beside her. "You really have to go?" "You know I do." "I know. Doesn't mean I like it." She was quiet for a moment. "Come with me." Darian looked at her, startled. "What?" "Come with me. You and your pack. We could use the help, and you're—" She stopped, unusually uncertain. "You're good at this. The fighting. The problem-solving. You see things I miss." It was tempting. More tempting than it should be. "I can't. I just accepted a position here. Resign. These people need to learn to protect themselves. You can't do that for them." "I can help them learn." Celine turned to face him fully. "Is it really about them, or is it about proving something to yourself?" The question hit harder than any physical blow. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You ran from your last town, spent 8 years trying to make up for it, and now you're doubling down, tying yourself to a place that almost killed you." She leaned closer. "At some point, you need to stop punishing yourself." "I'm not—" Darian stopped. Was he? "This isn't punishment. This is—" "What?" "Home." Finally. The word came out rough. "I spent my whole life running. From prejudice, from fear, from places that couldn't see past what I am. Ravenrest is the first place that's even trying. I owe them that effort back." "You don't owe anyone anything." "Maybe not. But I want to be here. That's got to count for something." Celine studied him, then sighed. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." She stood, stretched. "Fine. Stay. Build your little utopia. But when it all goes wrong—" "If it goes wrong." "When—" She emphasized the word. "When it goes wrong, and you need help, you call me. Got it?" "Got it." "I'm serious, Darian. Don't be a martyr." "I'll try." She walked away, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice, even if it's not the one I'd make." Then she was gone, disappearing into the evening shadows. Darian sat on the steps for a long time, watching the town settle into night. Lights in windows, people moving about their business, the ordinary miracle of life continuing. Tomorrow, he'd start the real work, building trust, creating systems, proving that humans and shifters could coexist. Tonight, he just breathed. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Celine and Corso prepared for departure, gathering supplies and information. Darian divided his time between his new office and the pack house, trying to serve 2 communities at once. It was exhausting. It was necessary. On the morning of their departure, Darian found them loading a wagon at the edge of town. Celine was checking weapons. Corso was studying maps, making notes. "You're really doing this," Darian said. "Someone has to," Corso replied. He looked better than he had. Still haunted, but functional. Purpose suited him. "Besides, if I stay here, someone will eventually decide I'm not worth the risk and shoot me. Better to be useful elsewhere." "That's dark." "That's realistic." Corso extended his hand. "Thank you for standing up for me, when you had every reason not to." Darian shook it. "Don't make me regret it." "I'll try not to." Celine finished her inventory, turned to Darian. "So, this is goodbye. For now?" "Right. For now." She hesitated, then pulled something from her pack, a small carved stone, worn smooth. "My father gave this to me, said it was for luck, for protection." She pressed it into Darian's hand. "Keep it safe until I come back for it." "You're coming back?" "Eventually, probably. When the work's done." She smiled, quick and uncertain. "Or when I miss arguing with you too much." "That could be a while." "Yeah, well, I'm patient." She climbed into the wagon. Corso snapped the reins and they started moving. Darian watched them go, the stone warm in his palm. It felt like an ending, like a beginning, like both at once. He turned back to town and found Marcus, the blacksmith one, waiting. "Got something to show you," Marcus said. If you've got time. I've got time. They walked to the eastern edge, where the old Hendricks property sprawled across 10 acres. Darian's pack had been working on it for 3 weeks, converting the main house into communal living space. But that wasn't what Marcus wanted to show him. At the property line, where Ravenrest proper ended and pack territory began, someone had erected a marker. Stone, carved with symbols, wolf and human, intertwined, and words in 3 languages. Common, the old wolf tongue, and something Darian didn't recognize. "What's the 3rd language?" he asked. "Old Territorial Pidgin," Marcus said, "from back when this land was contested, before either of our people really settled it." He pointed at the words. "It says, 'New ground, new terms, together.'" Darian stared at the marker, throat tight. Who did this? Town council commissioned it, but the design... Marcus smiled. That was Rebecca, Catherine's sister. She said her sister would have wanted something permanent, something that couldn't be taken back. "It's perfect." "Yeah, thought you'd like it." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Welcome home, Darian, officially." "Thanks. For everything." "Don't thank me yet. You've still got to deal with my wife's cooking at Sunday dinners. Let's just say she's enthusiastic." Darian laughed. "I'll survive." "That's the spirit." Marcus left. Darian stayed studying the marker. Behind him, he heard his pack emerging from the house. The evening run was starting soon. They'd patrol the territory, check the boundaries, do the ancient work of keeping watch. But tonight felt different. Tonight they weren't watching alone. From town he heard other sounds. Human voices, organizing their own patrols. A coordinated effort, different species working toward the same goal. Marcus the wolf appeared at his side, already in wolf form. The beta cocked his head, questioning. "Yeah," Darian said, shifting. "Let's run." They ran together, pack and purpose, and the wild joy of movement. The territory was theirs now, legally, officially, permanently. No more hiding. No more pretending to be less than they were. They circled back toward town as the moon rose. From the ridge, Darian could see the whole valley, Ravenrest spread out below, lights beginning to glow. His pack house to the east. The marker between them, new ground, new terms. Together. It wasn't perfect. People were still nervous, some still hostile. There would be setbacks, conflicts, moments when the whole experiment seemed ready to collapse. But they'd survived the worst together. And if they could do that, if they could face monsters and come out the other side still willing to try, then maybe, just maybe, they could build something that lasted. Marcus the wolf nudged him, ready to continue the patrol. Darian took one last look at the town, his home. Then he ran, pack at his back, toward whatever came next. 2 months later, the first official joint training exercise took place. Human guards and shifter scouts learning from each other, sharing techniques. It was awkward, full of mistakes and misunderstandings. It was also working. 6 months after that, the first shifter family moved into town proper. Not on the edges. Right in the center, 2 doors down from the mayor's house. A year after the attacks, they held a memorial. 26 names carved into stone, with space left below for future additions. Because there would be future losses. That was reality. But they'd be mourned together, human and shifter, side by side. Rebecca spoke at the ceremony. Her voice was steady, though tears ran down her face. "My sister believed we were stronger together," she said. "That our differences made us better, not weaker. She died before she could see it happen, but..." She looked at the crowd, human and wolf mixed together. "But she'd be proud of what we've built, what we're still building." Darian stood with his pack, listening. Corso had sent a letter from 3 territories east. They'd stopped another outbreak, saved another town. Celine had added a note at the bottom, "Still not dead, missed the arguments." He'd write back, later. Right now he just stood witness to the impossible thing they'd created. A town that had almost torn itself apart, now knitting back together. Stronger, stranger, better. The ceremony ended, people dispersed, heading to the memorial feast. Darian caught Marcus the blacksmith's eye, got a nod. Sunday dinner, it meant. They'd established the tradition, alternating weeks between human and pack houses, everyone cooking, everyone eating together. It was mundane, ordinary, revolutionary. As the sun set, Darien shifted and ran one more patrol. The territory was quiet, peaceful. He could smell the town on the wind, wood smoke, cooking food, the mingled sense of life continuing. He'd been so afraid standing in chains that this place would kill him. Instead, it had given him something to live for. The wolf and the man, finally at peace. Finally home. Not because the world had changed to accept him, but because he'd helped change the world. One conversation at a time, one crisis at a time. One small act of courage building on another until it became something permanent. Darien reached the marker at the property line and stopped. Someone had left flowers there, fresh, probably from this morning. He didn't know who. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they'd cared enough to leave them. He howled once, long and clear, a declaration, a promise, a statement of intent. I am here. We are here. This is ours. From town, human voices rose in response. Not howling, they couldn't manage that, but calling back, acknowledging the sound, answering in their own way. And in that moment, Darien knew they'd made it. Not to some perfect ending where all problems disappeared, but to a new beginning. Messy, complicated, imperfect, real. He turned toward the pack house where his family waited, turned toward the town where another family, different but equally his, went about their lives. Turned toward a future that was no longer defined by fear, but by the audacious hope that different could mean better, that monsters could choose to be protectors, that condemned could become celebrated, that in the brutal frontier town of Ravenrest, against all odds and expectations, humans and wolves had found a way to share the same ground. And if they could do it here, in this small, damaged, stubborn place, maybe it could happen elsewhere. Maybe it already was. Darien shifted back to human and walked home, the carved stone warm in his pocket, a promise kept and a promise to come. The alpha who'd knelt in chains now stood free, not because someone had granted him freedom, but because he'd fought for it, bled for it, built it from nothing but determination and the wild hope that things could change. They had changed. They would keep changing, and he'd be here to see it every step of the way. Home at last,